A lot of people are wondering who did the shootings in San Bernardino. Now, it's a very, very fair question because as we were doing the show live yesterday, we didn't know yet, and we had no names, we had no motive, and it looked like a workplace shooting. Now, oftentimes when radical Muslims do shootings or bombings, they do it in a very prominent place: Paris, New York, Washington. San Bernardino, at a place where they have disabled kids. Seems so random. And there was an initial report out about how there was a fight at a holiday party and then somebody left and then came back with weaponry. Okay, so that's why people were unsure yesterday. Today, we're a little bit more sure. Not a little bit, a lot more sure. So here are your new clues as to why they might have done this. First of all, we have the two suspects. Yesterday we thought it was three, but one person who had run from the building, probably understandably so, was detained and then released. They did not have anything to do with this. There were only two suspects, and they're a couple, Syed, Rizwan, Farook, and Tashfeen, Malik. So they're Muslim. Does that give you a clue? Of course it does, right? So now that is not the only clue and not the only factor. So if it had turned out that they were angry about something at work and then they went, in the unfortunate words of going postal, they'd done that. That's entirely possible. We've had Asians do that in Virginia Tech. We've had, races of different sorts do that, and ethnicities and backgrounds. But that is not the case here. So first of all, this was enormously well planned. Not that in that it was carried out with any kind of precision, but that they had protective gear on them. They had heavy weaponry, 2 assault rifles, 2 handguns, more than 1,600 rounds of ammunition. They wore masks. They wore tactical gear. They had 3 pipe bombs. Now, that was a coordinated attack. There's no question about it. It's not like, hey, somebody got mad at a holiday party and they went home and got their 3 pipe bombs and their tactical gear and 1,600 rounds of ammunition. No. They had planned to do this. Right now, no one has unearthed a manifesto or anything along those lines saying why they did it, because it's still such a bizarre place to do it. Now, he worked in public health, Farook did, which is, wow, maybe some part of what's wrong with public health. And they were having an event there, and the poor people, a lot of them got shot, also worked in public health. And obviously the most decent people in the world working there with disabled kids, right? So this guy's at a holiday party there when he wouldn't necessarily be in that building. He's at the party, according to authorities, for about 20 minutes or so. Then he goes home, comes back with his partner. They're not sure yet if it's technically his wife or his fiancée. And then they shoot up the place, right? So given all these, and more, by the way, here, more clues so to make it crystal clear. Now, it appears that his family's from Pakistan. He's an American citizen, born here, raised here. She was not. She was here on a visa because they were planning to get married, so that's how she came on a visa. She's from Pakistan. So he had gone back to Pakistan recently. That's not much of a clue because he's from there. But in 2013, he'd gone to Saudi Arabia. I mean, people go to Saudi Arabia, but it's a clue, given what we know now, right? And then they found apparently that he'd been watching ISIS propaganda on his home computer. Now again, this is just the day after. Some of these details might change, but the overall picture, I would be very surprised if it changed. It looks like it was an attack from radical Muslim, okay? So we can conclude that and move on. 14 dead and 21 injured. So when I say move on, let's be very, very clear about that, right? It's not like, okay, it happened, so let's just brush it under the rug. No, let's figure out what the issue here is and how we can help so that it doesn't happen again. Because if you remember yesterday's show, I was in a rage over this, and I'm still in a rage. I'm in a rage that they got all 4 of the guns legally. We're in a sea of guns, so if it was a terrorist act, and I'm going to stop saying if. It so clearly looks like a terrorist act the day after that I'm just going to call it a terrorist act going forward. So these guys who wound up becoming terrorists could just walk in, get all this weaponry, all this ammunition, build their pipe bombs, do whatever they were going to do, right? I'm mad at that. I'm mad at the radical Muslims and their ideology that has driven us to this. So now, how are we going to cover it? Well, New York Post chose to cover it in this way. They put up a huge headline that said, Muslim killers. Now, okay. Now, here's the issue with that, right? Now, number one, let me defend it a little bit, okay? Because everybody's wondering, were the killers, right wing, like the Planned Parenthood killer that just, did the shooting a couple of days ago? Was it a random lunatic? Was it a workplace disagreement, or was it Muslim? So everybody's wondering that. Everybody knows that. I get that. Everybody gets that, right? So their headline is, it was Muslims. It was Muslim killers. That answers the question. So that's my defense of their headline. Now, what is the problem with their headline? It leaves you with the impression that it is Muslims in general. Okay, so I want to take this moment to be a little bit clearer about who we should be mad at, right? Now, it's not just so that we can vent and be full of rage, but it's so that we can get to a more constructive solution so that we have less of these shootings and bombings, etc. So the three categories I have are radical Muslims, fundamentalist Muslims, and then Muslims in general. Now, everyone agrees radical Muslims, those are the ones I define as taking violent action like these guys, are the problem. There's no question. Everybody knows we've got to eliminate that. We've got to find a way to fight against that and beat that, right? Some believe that fundamentalist Muslims are not part of the problem. There's fundamentalist Christians, which is actually at least a third of the United States of America, and then there are fundamentalist Muslims, and so they believe in a stricter interpretation of the Quran, or an interpretation of the Quran that emphasizes the negative parts, as fundamentalist Christians here emphasize the negative parts, like gays are sinners, et cetera, right? Fundamentalists very rarely emphasize, let's help the poor and the needy, right? It happens from time to time. Actually, Jimmy Carter was an evangelical Christian, a fundamentalist of a sort, but he took it in a very positive direction. And in Islam, I know that not a lot of Americans have a lot of contact with Muslims, so they just can't believe this. But yes, there are some fundamentalist Muslims who emphasize the positive parts and care a lot about helping the poor and the needy, right? Some people just refuse to recognize that. But overall, I'm not in the camp that says fundamentalist Muslims are not a problem. I think it is a problem, okay? Now, what we don't want to happen, and I'll come back to that in a second, is we don't want ISIS and radical Islam to gain the upper hand. This is the flowchart that they want, right? So they want people from the Muslim population going over to the fundamentalist Muslims and eventually becoming radical Muslims. Now, when we do a headline like Muslim killers, well, then they get to turn around and go, you see that? They hate you, right? The West is never going to accept you. You're not really an American. You're not really French. You're not really Belgian. You're not any of these things. You're a Muslim. They know it. You know it. Come to our side. Come to our side. I don't want to help them do that. That's a really, really bad idea. I wanted to go in the opposite direction, right? Now, radical Muslims, there's nothing you can do about it anyway. They're already violent. We got to go get them, bring them to justice, etc., right? But there is, I believe, an opportunity to take fundamentalist Muslims and bring them in the opposite direction. So instead of this, the X is because you're never going to help the radical Muslims. But get the fundamentalist Muslims going over to the general Muslims direction. Now, there's some who believe, oh, you're crazy, that can't happen. But I did a report on this about a week ago telling you how fundamentalist Islam has increased greatly in the last 40, 50 years. And part of the reason for that was Saudi Arabia spreading Wahhabism. Another part of the reason for that was the U.S. decided it was a brilliant strategy to fight the communists by saying to the 1 billion Muslims in the world back then, hey, why don't you become more fundamentalist and fight the godless communists? Oops. So we supported the Mujahideen, we supported fundamentalist Muslims in Pakistan. That's part of the reason why I think fundamentalist Islam is also a problem, right? It's not just the radical Muslims, because it creates a culture from which radical Islam arises. That culture was not as toxic in Pakistan when we started this back in the 1980s, when we started giving their basically their intelligence agencies propaganda to spread throughout Pakistan, and then we did in Southeast Asia, and we did it in Africa as well. Oh, fight the communists, they're atheists, they're heathens, you guys are good Muslims, you should be even more Muslim, you should be more fundamentalist. That turned out to be a decent short-term strategy, especially in Afghanistan, and a horrific long-term strategy. So if we were able to influence the culture in that way and have it head in the wrong direction, and you call me naive if you want, but I believe that we can influence the culture and have it head in the right direction. Now, every scholar says that before Wahhabism really took off in the late 19th century, so it was before the U.S. came in and did what we did because of foreign policy, that Wahhabism, Salafism already existed, but it was in the late 19th century that it really started to take off. Before that, there was about a 400-year period in which case you had Muslim empires, but they did not emphasize jihad. So the whole idea of radical Islam was not as emphasized. Now, part of the reason that it wasn't as emphasized is because they were winning. So you didn't need to do jihad if you were in charge. If you've got a giant empire and you get to pick on minorities and you get to have your way and collect taxes from everybody and you're invading people, well, you don't need jihad as much. Jihad you need when you're out of power. And what am I going to do? I don't know. They got jets. I'm going to put on a suicide vest and I'm going to, the ideology of jihad. Now, before it was basically an ideology of empire because the Ottoman Empire was winning. Before that, the Arab Empire was winning within their context, right? So now, if there was a period of hundreds of years where jihad was not emphasized and radical Islam was not emphasized, is it possible that we could return to that? Yes. Okay. Is it easy? No way. No way is it easy. It's going to be a long, long stretch. Does it help to put all Muslims in the category of radical Muslims or even fundamentalist Muslims? No, it does not help that process. And by the way, there's a second problem with it. It's wrong. It's not true. It's not accurate. So the overwhelming majority of Muslims are like the overwhelming majority of all religious people, which is not actually that religious. So if you ask them what's in the Bible for religious Catholics, Protestants, etc., or you ask a Muslim what's in the Quran, do they know it? Nobody reads the text. Most of them, especially in the Muslim world, a lot of times the Quran is in Arabic. Southeast Asia, they don't speak Arabic. In Turkey, they don't speak Arabic. In Iran, they speak Farsi more than Arabic. And so oftentimes they don't even know what's in it. And if you ask them, hey, are you a Muslim that believes that the Quran is 100% right? What are people going to do? They're going to reflexively answer, yes, that's right. What, are you questioning my identity? Of course it's right. Like Christians do here. Hey, do you think Jesus Christ is the Savior? Of course I do. Okay, did you read the Bible? Do you know any of the details? Do you know that in Leviticus, even though it says you shall not lie with men, it also says you shouldn't eat shrimp? He doesn't know that. He didn't read the Bible. All he knows is what his pastor told him, right? And if he goes to church. So that general trend is also true in the Muslim world. Again, since here in America there's not a lot of exposure to the Muslim world, a lot of people just don't believe that. They think that 1.7 billion people are, not all of them, but generally a little crazed, a much more fundamentalist, and that their book is so vile and disgusting and horrible and unfixable and irredeemable that it makes the majority of Muslims, or a huge percentage of Muslims, fundamentalist by their nature, and some of them think radical by their nature. Now, that's not the case because history shows that that wasn't the case. And, you know, I had a debate about this with one of my co-hosts in Old School, in the most recent podcast that we shot, right? And he says, well, Jesus was a good role model because he didn't have power. He was powerless. He hung on the cross. First, that wasn't a choice. When he's on the cross, he said, God, why have you forsaken me? He thought he was going to win, right? But okay, even if you think Jesus is a good role model, and in some ways he was. Right, Sermon on the Mount was terrific, right? Well, that didn't stop Christians throughout history of not using him as a good role model, but using him for the exact opposite. And people, I know they get really touchy when you mention the Nazis, but I've done it on the show before, dozens of quotes from Hitler, where he's like, I'm doing this for Jesus Christ. We are Christians, we are a Christian army, we're doing this for Christianity. Now, you can say that's the wrong interpretation of the Bible. Well, the Bible is wildly hypocritical. There's a wonderful interpretation and a horrible interpretation, right? The Quran is wildly hypocritical. There is a horrible interpretation and a wonderful interpretation. It depends on the context, the politics, the time, even the geography for which direction they're going to take it and what culture is going to grow out of that mix, okay? So throughout history, again, there's some people online, you mention the Crusades, their heads explode. Oh my God, false equivalency, you can't say Crusades. No, we're not talking about, hey, this shooting happened and the Crusades happened hundreds of years ago, so call it even. No. The point is, could Christianity be perverted or interpreted in a way that leads you to Inquisition, Crusades, Holocaust, etc. Well, obviously, because they did all that, and they all pretended to be or claimed to be great Christians, fundamentalist Christians, right? And same battle is waging right now within Islam. People who think, hey, helping the poor, the needy, giving 10% of all of the money that you have to the poor is part of their interpretation of Islam, versus the guys who want to be radical. So let's acknowledge those facts and realize, no, the enormous majority of Muslims are human beings. Just like the human beings in the other religion, they mainly care about their family, they merely care about money, do they have enough food on the table for their family, friends, drinking, the same old things. Now, drinking is not allowed in Islam. A lot of things are not allowed in religion that people do anyway. Okay, go to a lot of Muslim countries, see if they drink. Okay, and they do, trust me. So as you have this mix, understand what the real issue is, and then for God's sake, let's get to the right answer. And, you know, I have a story later today about an ISIS hostage, a Frenchman who'd been there for 10 months. And he's like, stop bombing them, it's a trap, it's a trap. You're radicalizing the Muslims on the ground. They're not, all of them are not radical yet. When ISIS first came into Syria, into places like Raqqa, almost none of them were radical. But ISIS comes in with their poisonous culture, right? And then they say the West is against you, and they think you're all Muslims, and we think you're all Muslims, and we all think you should be fundamentalist and radical like us. And then the West comes by and helps ISIS by dropping bombs throughout the civilian population. And the civilian population goes, oh, I guess ISIS propaganda was right. The West hates us, and they view us as all the same. Well, we might as well fight them. You see, that is counterproductive. So I believe that we need a long-term strategy to make sure that we fight the culture wars, okay? And I think that fundamentalist Islam is a huge problem in the world. But when you conflate that with Muslims in general, and then you say things like, let's profile them or let's treat them differently, again, you're helping ISIS propaganda, and that leads to more shootings and more terrorist activity, not less. So again, for the 100th time, for God's sake, for Allah's sake, for the spaghetti monster's sake, for everyone's sake, let's be smart about this and not put out headlines that are counterproductive and lead us to our worst natures and to worse results. Let's listen to our better angels and help lead in a smarter direction that leads to a more peaceful world. Now, if you don't believe in that and you think that's naive and you think the only answer is war, well, then I can't help you. You're not listening to the logic that is laid out, not by me, but by all the scholars who've studied this, and including the Defense Intelligence Agency that says, the bombings aren't really working. And 50 intelligence agents for the Pentagon that turned around this summer and said, hey, some of our commanding officers are saying the bombing's working. We're here to tell you that airstrikes are not working, okay? It is counterproductive. Let's be smart. Please, let's be smart.